The Big Ten tournament is here, and it's time for the Indiana Hoosiers to go on a run.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That is with FanDuel. Well, thank you so much for being here. Hope you're having a fantastic Monday, or if you're checking this out a little bit later, hope you're having a great day and hope you had a good weekend, because Indiana basketball beats Ohio State. And as of right now, we are solidly in to the NCAA tournament. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, plus the other Big Ten teams that are in the NCAA tournament, plus that win over Ohio State, how we did it, what it means, and what we can do moving forward. And that all begins with the Big Ten tournament, which is finally here. And it's crazy to think that the regular season for college basketball has come and gone. The fact that we are over a week in to the month of March, and we've already had teams punch their ticket to the NCAA tournament thanks to winning their conference tournaments. And so now we get to this week when you start to get the big boys in action. And the Big Ten tournament bracket begins on Wednesday in Indianapolis, runs all the way through the weekend. And of course, this is a new looking Big Ten bracket because not every team is involved, right? Not every team got to make it to the Big Ten tournament, which is something new and it's different. And some people like it, some people don't. But my argument is win your games and you don't have to worry about it. And so not only did Indiana win our games, right? We ended up winning 10 of the 20. We go an even 500, 10-10 in Big Ten play. We also avoid having to play on Wednesday night, afternoon, whatever time slot we would have gotten, like Ohio State did, right? And just for Hoosiers' sakes, just for our opinion and kind of our track here, I really like our draw. I really, really do. Am I a huge fan of having to play Oregon again? No, not necessarily, but more on that in a moment. I just like where we are compared to other teams' paths in this Big Ten tournament, especially when we're trying to make a run, right? You've got Northwestern and Minnesota playing on Wednesday. You have Iowa taking on Ohio State, and you've got USC and you've got Rutgers. And I think those are all really fascinating matchups. The next round, right? Indiana, Oregon's the only set matchup in the second round on Thursday. Then you have Wisconsin, Illinois, and Purdue. We'll await the winners of the previously mentioned games. Then you've got Michigan State as the 1, Maryland as the 2, Michigan still hanging on as the 3, and UCLA as the 4. That's a weird UCLA team, one that is good, but quietly and casts streaks of not so good. And I don't know what they're going to do for that UCLA Bruins team, but that's where it stands, right? And so Indiana plays Oregon on Thursday. You would then play Michigan State if you win that game. If you were to beat Michigan State, you would play some combination of UCLA, Wisconsin, Northwestern, and Minnesota. You would likely think the winner of a Wisconsin and UCLA matchup. Then in the championship game, I mean, you could play anybody from the bottom portion. Purdue is in there, Illinois, Maryland, Michigan. I mean, there's a lot of different options there. And so while I think we are in the tougher portion of the bracket, I think we're in a more favorable part of the bracket for us in general, because yes, we get to play Oregon again after we just played them what seems like just a few days ago, right? When we made our trip out to the West Coast. And later on this week, believe on Wednesday, we're going to have our boy Spencer McLaughlin right back here on the show to talk about Indiana and Oregon for a little crossover action. So be sure you don't miss that. So we're going to play Oregon, a team that we just played and had a chance to beat on the road in Eugene, a game where we did not play very well, a game where we shot pretty decent from 3, but could not do anything else. And at the end of the day, you couldn't stop Shellstad, and he knocked down a half-court 3. I mean, it is what it is. And yes, they made some free throws to make the lead and the win look bigger than it actually was. So you play a team that you just played, and you're coming off of a really nice win over Ohio State, right? One that we're, again, going to talk about in just a few minutes. So you play Oregon in the first round, and let's just have some fun here. Let's say you win. Then you play Michigan State, a team that you are very familiar with. If you don't remember, that's one of your biggest wins of the season. That's one of the main reasons you are in the NCAA tournament, is because you went to their house and beat them in East Lansing. You got one of your biggest wins of the year against that Michigan State team. And so you have to be feeling pretty good with playing Michigan State again, who was number 11 at the time when you went and beat them 71-67. And so I think with those two games in particular, Oregon and Michigan State, I'm not going to try and predict who you would play in a semifinal after that. Again, probably UCLA or Wisconsin. Would be nice to have another shot at those two teams, and then whoever it would be in the Big Ten championship. But the question that I think everybody's asking in terms of Indiana is, okay, can we make a run? Can we build on what we just did at the end of the regular season? And I think we can. I absolutely think we can. If you have your two bigs playing the way they are, Oumar Ballo and Malik Reneau, in their individual roles, not together, just playing in their individual roles, plus Trey Galloway, who was a big reason down the stretch that you beat Ohio State. If he can continue to play well in his senior campaign, plus you have guys like Luke Goody and Anthony Leal, you have guys stepping up now for this Indiana squad that give you a chance to make a run in Indianapolis. And then if you get any sort of support from Miles Rice or Mackenzie Mbako or Cannon Carlisle or whoever the heck it's going to be, then that's just going to be icing on the cake. And yeah, I think you do have a chance to make a run in Indianapolis. And maybe the more important question, do you need to make a run in Indianapolis? And that's a tough question because right now Indiana seems to be in the tournament as an 11 seed as part of the last four buys, according to Joe Lunardi on ESPN. So technically, no, you don't. Because I don't think losing to Oregon in the second round, your first game, is considered a bad loss. If we were playing where Ohio State is and had to take on Iowa, then I would say you'd have to win that game because that's considered a bad loss. But as we know in the NCAA tournament, which we'll have more on this in the third segment of today's show, you don't get really credited for wins in your conference tournaments. You just get punished for bad losses. And Indiana's not going to have that. Taking on what is now a 5 seed in the Oregon Ducks, I think we're okay. But I do think we can, and I think we should try to make a run in Indianapolis. And let's see what happens. Let's try and go win a Big Ten tournament title. All right, coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers, it is because of a win over Ohio State that we get to play Oregon in the Big Ten tournament. It's also a win over the Buckeyes that may have just solidly put us in the NCAA tournament. But how do we do it? We'll talk about that coming up next right here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, so now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's at supplyhouse.com. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Wayfair. Your home should reflect your style, and with Wayfair, it's easier than ever to make that happen. Whether you're looking for a simple refresh or tackling a big home project, Wayfair has everything you need in one place. Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find the perfect piece, no matter your space or your budget. From cozy furniture and stylish decor to kitchen essentials and outdoor must-haves, Wayfair has it all, and at prices that fit your budget. Finding the perfect piece is for me, right? Because you have, whether it's that TV stand or whether it's the outdoor furniture or whether it's something for the kitchen, Wayfair has it all. And for me, it was that TV stand. Had to be a certain length, had to be a certain height, and you can literally look that up on Wayfair, and they have dozens and hundreds and thousands of different options for you to choose from, and they make it super, super easy. Head over to wayfair.com and find something that's just for your style today. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. And just quickly, for those of you listening on audio, appreciate you being there and listening on your various platforms. Make sure you're following us. Make sure you have those notifications turned on in case we have any bonus episodes go out, which we do throughout the week and on the weekend. So don't want you to miss those. And if you're watching on the YouTube side, if you are a regular video watcher there on YouTube, appreciate you being there as well. Make sure you like the video, right? Hit that thumbs up. Leave your comments on YouTube down below on your thoughts on the Big Ten tournament, the win over Ohio State, things like that. And then subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All of those things really do help us out, and I appreciate you doing that. We are playing Oregon in the Big Ten tournament, and we're currently into the NCAA tournament as an 11 seed, and that is because you beat Ohio State in the regular season finale. A game that we talked about and said that, yes, you should win, but it was no guarantee. It was no gimme. And you got it done on your home floor. On senior day, the Hoosiers take down the Buckeyes 66-60. It was an ugly first half. Just a gross, disgusting first half. We couldn't make layups. We couldn't make free throws. We made a couple of threes, but that was about it. And at the half, you're trailing 29-25 to this Ohio State team at home on senior day. We were like, oh no, Woody's last game, and he's going to lose to a mediocre Ohio State team. Somehow, by the grace of God, even though you were down by 10 at one point, you come all the way back and you make this thing a game, and you end it on a 12-0 run, thanks to the man himself, the 28-year senior Trey Galloway. I'm kidding. He's been awesome, but he's been great here in the last couple of games, and he was great again in this game. And it was a combination of Oumar Ballo in the first half and Trey Galloway down the stretch in the second half and Malik Reneau making free throws. How about Indiana going 17 of 21 in the second half from the free throw line, coming off of a game against Oregon where you didn't even shoot double digits in free throws, and you knock them down in the second half. And guess what? That's what it takes to win in March. That's what it takes to win in the month of March, whether it's the regular season finale, the Big Ten tournament, or the NCAA tournament. And Indiana did exactly what they were supposed to do. It was ugly, sure. It took a miracle three at the shot clock buzzer by Trey Galloway to get this thing done. Okay, who cares? You beat Ohio State, and you got the win that you needed. And we went into this game, remember, talking about how you didn't necessarily need the win over Ohio State. You just didn't necessarily need the loss to Ohio State, right? That's a team who was more on the bubble than you are, and they are still more on the bubble than you are. And as of Joe Lunardi's bracketology, as of late Sunday night, Ohio State is still considered last four in. They play Iowa in that Big Ten tournament. They may be in that situation where beating Iowa doesn't get you a whole lot, but losing to Iowa may just drop you out. So they're in a bad spot, and that's what I didn't want, right? That's what I did not want for us in Indiana. I didn't want to go into the Big Ten tournament having to stress and worry about, well, do we have to win this one? Can we afford a loss here? Do we have to get some style points? How does it have to look like? I don't want to mess with that crap. And side note, the fact that it comes down to that, the fact that the NCAA tournament committee has that much power and control over people and teams and coaches and the fans, and nobody has any idea exactly what you're supposed to do. It's kind of messed up in my opinion, but conversation for a different time. Winning this game for Indiana avoided all of that, to where now you get into Indianapolis, which you would expect us, of course, to have a pretty home heavy crowd. And I'm not saying there's no pressure, but there's a lot less than there would have been if you lost this game against Ohio State. And there was pressure to win this game against Ohio State because of a lot of factors. Woody's last game at Assembly Hall, seniors there, right, coming down the stretch in what has been a bumpy ride of a regular season. And this was just the perfect way to go out. This was the perfect way to end the regular season. And I'm glad that it's not over. I'm glad that we have the Big Ten tournament. I'm glad that I think we're going to have the NCAA tournament. And at that point, you just take what you can get and you just see what you can do. And you just try to go on a run and put a bow on this season. But for Trey Galloway to be stepping up at this particular time is a really, really big deal for this Indiana squad, because I mentioned Ballo had a good first half. Reneau had a good second half. They have a good game together. You get some shots from Luke Goody, right? Some big, nice couple of curls there at the top. When he's knocking down shots, Indiana is a dangerous, dangerous team. And look, overall, we shoot 35% from the floor, terrible. We shoot 25% from three, terrible. We shoot 74% from the free throw line, that's okay. But we dominated the rebounding category, especially on the offensive side, right? Offensive rebounds were so big in this game, and that's where Oumar Ballo has to live. That's where he has to be a force coming up in postseason play. But it just goes to show, when we win the rebounding battle, we typically have a good chance to win, but that doesn't always happen. Oregon didn't happen, and you see what the result is. This team lives on limiting possessions, making shots, and getting downhill. And if you can do that, you've got a good chance coming up this week in the Big Ten tournament. And I think that's why we can make a run. And here's what's so crazy, that I continue to just give props to this Indiana team. They didn't lay down and die. They have not given up. They continue to play. When I thought they were done, I thought there was no way that they could continue, or maybe not could, would continue to play. I mean, think about this. Remember the stretch that we went through? Remember losing back-to-back games to Iowa and Illinois in blowout fashion? You lose to Iowa by 25. You lose to Illinois by nearly 30. You remember that, right? You lose that one by 25. You beat Ohio State on the road, so you sweep the Buckeyes this year, which is cool. But you go on the road and you win a close game against the Buckeyes. And you're like, okay, all right, everything's okay. We're fine. Then you rattle off 5 losses in a row. Northwestern, Maryland in close games. Purdue was a close game. Wisconsin was not really a close game. The score is closer than the game actually was. Michigan was a close game, and we're thinking, great. Well, it's done. It's over. Should they fire Mike Woodson? We were talking about that in the middle of the season. Then all of a sudden they go on the road to Michigan State and they pull something out of their you-know-what, and they beat the Spartans. Yeah, they turn around and lost to UCLA, but since that point, you're winners in 4 of your last 5. And now you take that into the Big Ten tournament thanks to this win over Ohio State. It was not pretty. It was not style points. There was nothing but grit and determination to win this game. And I think that's what's going to carry the Hoosiers. I really do. I think if you can take this into Indianapolis, you've got a chance to win some games. And then you take that into the NCAA tournament, and you never know what's going to happen. But I commend this team for not giving up. And Mike Woodson, too. I mean, he seems to be just coaching free and just kind of like, cool, let's see what happens. And it's actually working, which seems to be a daggone miracle. But hey, you know what? We'll take it, because Indiana still win at basketball games. And this one on Saturday was no different. 66-60. Again, we're not going to go back and watch very many highlights from this game, but the Trey Galloway shot may just go down in history for Indiana with this particular class, with a guy like him who has just given so much to this program. And so excited that it got to end that way in the regular season, and excited to see what this week holds in Indianapolis for the Big Ten tournament. And a lot of that could impact what we see on Selection Sunday in the NCAA tournament. So where does the Big Ten stand right now, and where do your Hoosiers stand right now? We're talking about that coming up next in our final segment right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year. Hey, how about the Hoosiers? We're considered an underdog, right? And on FanDuel, they make it easy to back them with the spreads, totals, and game props. So maybe you hop on the Hoosiers. I'm just saying, in the FanDuel app, it's so simple to use. And when I win, I get paid instantly. And so can you. There's no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get started and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Again, that's FanDuel.com. Final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here and making this your first listen or your first watch every single day to this free podcast that we post Monday through Friday with bonus episodes sprinkled around in there during the week and on the weekends. And as fun as the Big Ten tournament's going to be this week in Indianapolis, it's all leading up to the NCAA tournament. And where is the Big Ten right now? Where is Indiana right now? What about those bubble teams? What about the higher seeds? Where does all that stand as this week begins? Well, let's break it down a little bit. According to Joe Lunardi, all right, at Bracketology, as of Sunday night, March 9th, he updated this thing. According to the site, he updated it at 11:25 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday night. So he's updating this thing every single day. And the Big Ten is still holding strong. We've still got double-digit teams in the NCAA tournament. What's crazy is the SEC is still slated to get 13 in. That's absurd, but we're right there with 10. And that includes a couple of bubbles. That's Nebraska, who has fallen out to the next four out. They're done unless they make a big run this week in Indianapolis. You also have Ohio State, as we mentioned, as the last four in, and then Indiana as a last four by. So the bubble was congested there for a while for the Big Ten. It has since kind of fizzled out, if you will, because of teams winning, teams losing, and it's how this thing works down the stretch in March. And so good news is, for Indiana, we are considered right now an 11 seed over in the Midwest, which according to him is the bottom right portion of the bracket, which is nice because the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight are played in Indianapolis. Yes, these games are played in Indianapolis. And right now, as an 11 seed, we're squared up against St. Mary's that played in Providence, matched up with St. John's and Towson. Do not want to play St. John's. St. Mary's still scares me too. But the fact of the matter is, you're in the NCAA tournament. And of the other 10 teams right now for the Big Ten, you're looking at teams across the board. We're in the same portion as Purdue, which is wild that they would let that happen. Purdue is the 4 seed in that bracket. Ohio State, as of right now, would be one of the play-in games against Oklahoma, matching up with Arizona in that portion of the bracket. You've got other teams like Michigan as a 6 seed up top. Wisconsin's a 4 seed up top. You have others from the Big Ten. Oregon, we mentioned them as a 5 seed right now. Seems to be pretty solid for the Ducks. They are playing Liberty in the first round. If this is as of Sunday, some of this is going to change. There's no doubt. Michigan State is that 2 seed after winning the Big Ten regular season title and having a chance to go on and win the Big Ten tournament title as well. 2 seed seems pretty solid for a team like Michigan State. Maryland is the 4, Illinois is the 6. And so you've got teams spread around in there, but I don't hate where we are. I don't really like St. Mary's in terms of a matchup thing. St. John scares the heck out of me. Having Purdue in our bracket is just wild to me, but you do get to play in the Indianapolis region if you get to the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, which, look, I know that's probably a tall ask for a lot of Indiana fans or just college basketball in general, but you're looking at the benefits here and just laying it all out for you. And I think it's a big deal that the Big Ten is flirting with 10 teams in the NCAA tournament. I think that's a really big deal to say that you're the second best conference in college basketball behind a historic season from the SEC, one that we'll probably never see again. That's a big deal to me. And it should be to you too. And the fact that Indiana, in a down year, one that, yes, we had high expectations, but one that has not gone well, the fact that you managed it, you went 500 and you're on the verge of making the NCAA tournament. Do I think all these teams make it? Yeah, I do. I think Indiana makes it. I think Ohio State makes it. I don't think Nebraska gets up there, but I think what you see right now in the bracket is probably going to happen unless something wild goes down. And you've got bid stealers out there too, but I don't think it's going to impact the Big Ten all that much. And I think the Big Ten's got a chance to make some noise in the Big Ten or in the NCAA tournament. Michigan State's playing really well. Michigan's got to get back to playing well. Maryland's a very dangerous team. Purdue, if they can get back right, there are some really good teams in the Big Ten. And then teams like Wisconsin or Oregon are really solid too. Indiana, Ohio State can make some noise in the first and second rounds. And so I'm excited to see how it plays out and what we end up with on Selection Sunday. And ultimately, I cannot wait for the NCAA tournament. And we're going to cover the best we can right here as the Indiana Hoosiers make a run through the Big Ten tournament this week and then try to get to the NCAA tournament next week. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much again for being here. Cannot express that enough, okay? Thank you so much as we are just getting started for the week. Again, if you're listening on audio, follow us, leave a 5-star review, share it with your friends if you can. Friends and family need to be listening and watching this podcast, okay? And if you are watching on YouTube, like the video, leave your thoughts in the YouTube comments below, and subscribe to the channel. All right, we are back tomorrow, Hoosier fans. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.